Okay, and welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, your franchise guide, where we have a great show today. We invited back Mark Siebert from the iFranchise Group. Mark was on the show, I'd say just over 2 years ago, and he's back by popular demand as we've been getting a lot of questions about saying, how do I franchise my business? What are the next steps? Who's a good fit? And we're going to cover all that great information today. Just a little bit about Mark. Actually, I'm gonna have him cover kind of what he's accomplished and a little bit more about the iFranchise Group. But just some fun facts about Mark. He's been involved in some of the biggest success stories in franchising, acting as a consultant to companies like Buffalo Wild Wings, Massage Envy, McAllister's Deli, QC Kinetics, and many, many more. The iFranchise Group and the team has been involved also with Auntie Anne's, Culver's, Jimmy John's, Jersey Mike's, which is right here in our backyard, Pearl Vision, Snap-on Tools, and so much more. So needless to say, Mark, you've been around, you know some of these great companies, you've been involved in these great success stories, and welcome again to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Giuseppe.
I'm excited to have you. Again, when I say back by popular demand, get a lot of questions. We send people over your way, and I thought it'd be a great opportunity to kind of revisit and make sure we answer a lot of our, the questions we're getting on a daily basis, because there are a lot of people that are in that boat. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I'll do a little plug here. Mark sent me a copy of Franchise Your Business. I'd say it's probably one of the best written books and really kind of guides in helping you figure out who should franchise their business and how to go about it and their options. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the iFranchise Group.
Well, thanks a lot, Giuseppe. Again, thanks for the kind words. The iFranchise Group is the nation's largest franchise consulting firm. We're also rated as the number one consulting firm, and it's not just me saying it. It's 800 franchisors who participated in surveys done by Entrepreneur Magazine year after year after year. Every year we win the top-rated franchise consulting firm based on the votes of franchise companies around North America. So I think that we sort of have our points on the board from the standpoint of being the number one rated franchise consulting firm. We work a lot with established franchisors and with startups. So if you're getting into franchising for the first time, there's sort of a predictable set of services that we provide to our clients. And then with established franchisors, big names like McDonald's and others, Subway, have come to us with very specific needs where they're looking for people who can help them solve sort of very specific kinds of problems or issues that they're dealing with. So we got about 40 people on staff, 900 plus years of cumulative experience. Our people in total have worked for about 65 different franchise brands, and all of which have been very successful. So it's a group of people that have a wide variety of experience and helping franchisors to grow, and that's what we bring to the table.
Yeah, and when we spoke last, that list keeps getting larger and larger. And I will mention one thing: we are all called franchise, or titles franchise consultants, but a little bit different of a role, right? We help people in finding existing franchises to invest in. Whereas with Mark's company, I know there was a little confusion. I've received a few calls, and that's why I've switched over to franchise coach or advocate, whatever you want to call it. But there's a little bit of, I want to franchise my business. And I said, well, let's put you in touch with a good friend of mine, Mark. So I appreciate that. So the show is called Franchise Freedom. We don't just talk about franchising on the show. We talk about the transitions from employment to employer, employee to employer. We talk for people that are looking to diversify their investments, create exit strategies. So we talk a lot about just business ownership and the benefits, who it's for. And I definitely want to get into more franchising. But talk to us a little bit about, people have options. When you start a business, there's so many options out there. And some people will have that startup, and then they'll kind of want to go on to the next steps. And if you're a fan of Shark Tank, you hear about licensing, you hear about franchises, and there's so many different options. Would you mind kind of starting off with talking about the various options someone may have?
Sure.
As far as their startup, as the direction they want to move in.
Yeah. One of the things that I think people oftentimes don't understand is that franchising is a legally defined term. Mm-hmm. So under FTC Rule 436, a franchise is in the United States, a franchise is a business that has three elements. First of all, it's using the name. So McDonald's. Second of all, the franchisor is going to provide significant operating assistance or exercise significant operating control. Mm-hmm. Let's shorthand that and call that the system. It can be things like providing an operations manual. It can be providing training. It can be providing a protected territory. There's 18 different things that are listed in the rule as things that can potentially create that element of the relationship. And the third thing is that the franchisor takes a fee. Mm-hmm. And that fee would be something would be over $500 in the first 6 months of operation. And the one exclusion is the sale of product at a bona fide wholesale price. So if you have those three things, the name, the system, and the fee, under the federal law, you're going to be a franchise. And then there's some state laws that govern franchising as well. Some of them are actually a little bit more inclusive than that. The state of New York, for example, is a little bit more inclusive in terms of what constitutes a franchise. But if you think of franchising as a starting point, take away one of those three definitional elements and you've got something else. So name, system, fee is a franchise. Take away the name and you've got a business opportunity license. So you can license somebody to learn your business and teach them everything they need to know. But instead of operating as McDonald's, they're operating as Mark's Burgers. Well, if I'm operating as Mark's Burgers, that's a business opportunities license. It does not have the advantage of branding, but it is perhaps a little bit less regulated, at least at a national level. There are a number of states that regulate business opportunities, of course. The second option that you'd have is to take away the trademark, take away the system of operation, in which case you'd have a trademark license. If you take away the trademark, if you have a trademark license, that'd be like Michael Jordan and his image on Nike's shoes. There's not really a business behind it, but you just have a well-known brand, and he's licensing the use of his image or his name on those shoes. You really have to have a well-known name to start with in order for that to be an opportunity for you. And the third is you take away the fee element of the definition. So if you take away the fee element of the definition, the question is, how do you get paid? If you get paid by splitting the profits of a business, you're going to end up owning some equity in the business. That makes you a joint venture partner or some other kind of stockholder in that business.
Right.
If you get paid by selling products to a third party, you can be a dealer or a distributorship. So a dealership or a distributorship, depending on whether there's 2 steps or 3 steps. If you get paid based on somebody else selling on your behalf, it can be an agency relationship, or it can be a sales rep kind of relationship. But essentially, if you look at it from those perspectives, you can essentially outline what the alternatives are. And you can have things, you can sort of have multiple iterations of these. So you can have a franchise that's also a joint venture. If you were to create a franchise name, system, and fee, where you'd also share equity. You can have a dealership that also has a trademark license. So, for example, one of our clients is Swarovski. They don't take any fees, but they do sell products, and there's a trademark license associated with the stores. So there's different ways in which you can go about doing it. Right. We always counsel our clients, first of all, determine if you need a third-party channel of distribution. Many people, in order to reach their goals, may just be fine with either company-owned growth or bringing in equity to grow their business. But if you can't reach your goals through company-owned growth, then look at the third-party channels of distribution from the standpoint of, number one, do you even need a third-party channel distribution? Number two, if you do need that third-party channel of distribution, do you want it to be branded? If you want it to be a branded channel of distribution, do you want to control the way in which that brand is used? The answer to that usually is yes, because you work too hard on that brand usually to let other people do what they want with it.
Right.
And then the last question is, how do you want to get paid? And if the answer is, I do need a third-party channel distribution, I want it to be branded, I want it to exercise some control over the way in which that brand is operating, and I want to get some kind of a fee, whether it's an upfront fee or a royalty or a training fee or a consulting fee or whatever it happens to be, other than a bona fide wholesale selling price on manufactured goods, then it's going to be a franchise. And if it's something other than that, then it's not going to be a franchise. And but we always tell people, don't try to make it a franchise. Figure out what the best business decision is for you, and then make the legal documents accordingly, and make sure that you comply with whatever the laws are that are going to govern that kind of business relationship.
And I think it's you nailed it right there, right? It's really working with someone like yourself to figure that out, not jumping the gun and creating a franchise agreement to find out, oh, well, maybe it should have been a license, maybe it should have been a joint venture, or essentially a different avenue. It's working with the professional to really figure out, is this a business that can be franchised, and ultimately, why do you want a franchise? Because to your point, a franchise may not be the best fit. Depending on what you're looking to accomplish. When I work with families looking to invest in an existing brand, an existing franchise, I always say the product or the service is great, but ultimately, what is your role in that business? And that is going to change when you have a startup, and maybe you have a fantastic burger recipe you want to franchise. That role is going to change. So really figuring out, to your point, what is the best way of expansion via the list of questions that you kind of outline, and ultimately, what is your role? What do you truly enjoy doing in the business? And I think that's important as well, because that role is going to change. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And businesses should be designed to meet the needs of the business owner, and ultimately, the reason why anybody goes into any business is because they've got some needs that they're looking to meet. Whether that's as a franchisee or as a franchisor, it's important to understand, what are those needs? What is it that you want to accomplish? What kind of skills do you have to bring to the table? What kind of capital do you have to bring to the table? And how do you best employ those to meet your needs?
Right. Now that makes a lot of sense. So we look at the list of options, and just say, we fast forward and say, okay, for this show, we decide, yes, franchising based off of how you're looking to expand and the roles and your strengths and just kind of that 5-10 year plan. Franchising is a good fit. Why franchising? What's so great about a franchise? Like, how do you? I've heard some people make negative comments. I've heard positive, just like anything else. And when you dig a little bit deeper, I feel like people, and it's nothing against a particular industry, but when I talk to people, they feel like franchising is only food. They don't realize there's a franchise in every industry. And they'll say, oh, I didn't realize you can go from food to restoration to pet waste removal. I mean, there's literally a franchise in every industry. So what is so spectacular about franchising?
Well, I mean, one of the clients you mentioned in your introduction was QC Kinetics, and it's a medically based franchise that we rolled out about 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And they've sold 300 franchises already. So what's special about franchising is in pretty much any industry that you've got where you've got a differentiated business, you can grow much faster. You can grow with other people's money, and you can grow with highly motivated management. The big 3 reasons why people franchise: time, people, and money. You can grow faster because other people are out there finding sites, negotiating leases, assuming you've got a physical location. They're hiring people, they're buying the inventory, they're setting the things up, they're training the people. They're doing all the things that you would normally have to do. And you can have 4, 5, 6, or many more franchises doing that all simultaneously. Right. Whereas if you're trying to open up 4, 5, 6 or more locations simultaneously, it'd be pretty difficult to do. Secondly, from the standpoint of capital, the franchisee has all the capital invested. They're the ones signing the leases. They're the ones that are paying the employees. They're the ones that are buying the equipment or leasing the equipment. And they're the ones that are buying the initial inventory. So you're freed from those capital constraints. And that allows you to grow without giving up equity, but at the same time allows you to grow using other people's money. And then the third thing is motivated management, which is a real big thing in today's marketplace, because the people that are investing in your franchise, number one, they are highly committed to making that business work because they've invested maybe their life savings in your business to try and make sure that it is going to, they're going to make sure that it is going to work, because if it doesn't, that's a huge risk for them.
Right.
And more importantly, not only are they investing their life savings, but they're going to be in it long term. A franchisee is not like a manager who might be in your business today and resign 6 months later because they got a better opportunity. These people are going to be in it for years, maybe decades. There are right now third generation, maybe even fourth generation McDonald's franchisees out there. And these people have grown up with ketchup in their veins, as they say over at McDonald's. So it's, these people are folks that really understand the business, sometimes better than the franchisor. And they are going to be long-term, highly motivated employees, or highly motivated operators, I should say. They're not employees, that, allow you to grow faster with less risk, less capital, and, without the worries of day-to-day management, because you're not involved in the day-to-day running of the business.
Yeah, I like that. And I always say it's a two-way street, right? You're interviewing the franchisor, they're interviewing you, because ultimately, especially in the beginning stages, you need to really solidify who is that franchise avatar, that ideal candidate that's a good fit. Are they part-time, full-time? Are they outgoing sales because they're leading the organization? Are they more, are you looking for more of a manager because the sales and marketing are kind of done for you? So I always say with any business, you want to find the right fit. And the major benefit that I talk about probably every single day is you not only do you get to speak with the franchisor to make that decision, you get to speak, if it's an established brand, to other franchisees and say, hey, what are your thoughts? Would you do it all over again? Give us some feedback. So someone looking at investing in a franchise, they do have that extra towards the end of the process, what we call validation, where they can speak with the franchisees and get a true understanding how they run the business, where they follow in the system, what kind of money they can make, and things like that. So that list goes on. I call it almost like after buying the franchise, it's like a mastermind where they get together at least once a year. And when I've gone to some of these meetings, you have people that come from all different industries. Yes, you're going to that one particular franchise, but people bring so many different experiences to the table, strengths. Maybe they come from different industries. So it's a great way to kind of get together once a year for a few days or for a week and really share some ideas. So that list goes on. So for someone that is, they're listening, they grab a copy of your book because it gets into a lot more detail. Do they, the question I get is, do I need to have more than one location, assuming it's a brick and mortar or one or more territory, we'll say, if it's a service, home-based brand, do they have to have more than one location to be a true proving concept? Can you franchise something with one location or territory, or do you recommend multiple before kind of taking the leap into franchising?
Well, it sort of depends on the concept, honestly, because if you're going head to head with McDonald's with your concept, you're going to need something that's really well proven to be able to compete with a company like that. But if you've got something that's new and differentiated, going out to the franchise marketplace with one location has been done many times before, including with McDonald's. When McDonald's got started, they had one location. But some of the clients you mentioned in your list, when you talked about, for example, Massage Envy. When Massage Envy came to us, they had one location in existence. Today, I think they've got 1,600, and I'm not sure the exact number these days, but they started franchising with us when they had one location. They had something that was new, something that was different. They had a desire to grow aggressively, and we put together a plan based on that program, and we're able to execute on that. And we've had a number of clients like that have been able to grow very aggressively with just one location to start. So you can absolutely have one, but you have to start with an understanding of who your competitive set is and what your points of difference are that are going to allow you to compete in that marketplace.
And to that point, and this goes back to our first conversation over 2 years ago, is that you have options for growth, right? It's not, just because you're a franchise doesn't mean you have to follow the same kind of method as far as expansion. So I think on our first show, we talked about, you don't have to go national for say in all states. You can keep it regional to get started, to maybe grow or expand a little bit slower.
Yeah, in fact, we actually recommend that the vast majority of our clients, we recommend they start out within a 3-hour drive time of their existing location. Okay. We don't want people to start out national. And the reason is it's very difficult to provide service and support to a franchisee if you got to get on an airplane and spend a day in the air to just get out there to see your franchisee. Much rather see them closer to home where you can provide more support, make sure your franchisees are successful. Mm-hmm. I think you'd agree with me, Giuseppe, that the key to successful franchise sales, the key to growing a franchise company is successful franchisees. Mm-hmm. If you've got a bunch of successful franchisees in your system, you're going to be successful as a franchisor. And if you've got a bunch of franchisees in your system that fail, you're going to fail as a franchisor. And, you mentioned validation as being an important step as part of your process. I know you guys don't represent folks that don't validate, because you want to make sure that the people that you're getting into business are people that are going to validate well and that are going to provide your clients with the best chance of success. That's an absolute must-have in franchising. Right. And so national rollouts, I would say I recommend that for less than 5% of the clients that come to me.
Oh, wow.
Because it's really important that, walk before you run.
Right.
And, we can get national eventually, but the vast majority of my clients, it's walk first.
I like to say I learned something new in every call. So I did not realize that. I thought it was the opposite. So that is very good to know. And I think it just becomes a little bit overwhelming for someone looking to franchise like all 50 states. How am I going to expand? So I think that's crucial. That's really helpful. In someone thinking about franchising their business. I see a lot of brands. I'm in this industry full time, and some of them have great ideas, great products, but there's no execution when it comes to, or I shouldn't say no execution, but the support is not necessarily there. It seems like the product almost sells itself, but the franchisor is growing quickly, and they don't have that system in place in order to support all these franchisees coming in and getting to these milestones of growth. Is that, I guess, talk to us a little bit about, with the iFranchise Group and what you're able to offer each of your clients. It sounds like you can offer assistance and set up in every aspect aside from the legal, the actual creation of the franchise agreement itself. Is that correct? Maybe talk us through, does
Sure.
someone have options, or do they kind of pick, because they may have a great idea, but they don't maybe have the execution, the operations manual for their staff.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things that before talking about what we do, I think one of the things I would do is I'd sort of reiterate what I just said a second ago about the importance of walking before you run. Mm-hmm. It's a lot easier to execute if you're selling 3 franchises in your first year than it is if you're trying to sell 20.
Right.
And so you will much more likely be able to make them successful if you start out not only selling close to home, but selling fewer franchises to begin with. Again, as part of that sort of walk before you run.
Right.
And if you sell 3 in the first year and then you start building the staff that provides the support to your franchisees, then that allows you to gear up for more aggressive sales in year 2 and year 3 and year 4. And you continue to build your organization so that by year 3, 4, 5, you can start selling more aggressively. And what we do for a new franchisor, and obviously different from what we do with an established franchisor, but with a new franchisor, the first thing we typically do for them is to help them develop the strategy. So when somebody gets into franchising, there's oftentimes, especially with entrepreneurs who tend to be people who are very self-sufficient, there
Right.
tends to be an inclination to say, well, I'm going to franchise, and they run out to a lawyer and say, this is what I want to do. But having never built a franchise before, there are some very easy mistakes that can be made as a part of the process. And in particular, the kind of mistakes are on the business terms. So, for example, one of the ways a franchise or will get paid is by taking a royalty on the gross revenues of the franchisee. Well, let's say that franchise does $500,000 in revenue on average. Well, if it's a $500,000 revenue business and the franchisor underestimates the royalty by 1%, so maybe they charged a 6% royalty and they should have been at 7%.
Right.
Based on the services that they're providing, everything else. The franchisee is never going to come back to them and say, you guys should be charging me more, right? So they're going to sort of get into this habit of charging at 6%. Maybe they sell 100 franchises. Well, that 1% difference is $5,000 if you only sell one franchise.
Right.
But if you sell 100 franchises, it's $500,000. And if you got a 10-year contract term, it's $5 million. And that $500,000 off the bottom line, when you sell the business, multiplied times a 10, 15 times earnings multiple,
right,
is going to be another $5 to $7.5 million. So you're talking $10, $15 million easily.
1%, yeah.
1% mistake. The same example can be used for things like territories and making a wrong decision on territory size or franchise fees or a number of other business decisions. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you develop good, sound business decisions, not just by looking at competitors and saying this is what XYZ competitor did, but by developing a strategy that's unique to you and is focused on what you do differently and how you're going to grow your business and meeting your goals.
Right.
That's the first thing we typically do. And then we interact with the lawyers. That's the one part, as you pointed out, that we don't do, to help them to develop the legal documents that'll be necessary. So in franchising, you're going to need to develop what's called a disclosure document that follows a prescribed format that is going to be something that every franchise prospect is going to get prior to the franchise sale. And so the lawyers typically would develop that along with the contract. We'd be involved in helping them to understand the business decisions that would go into that. The next thing is you want to make sure you're controlling quality. And so the things we would typically do for our clients are to develop things like operations manuals. So an operations manual is something that, in addition to controlling quality, is going to ideally help the franchisor eliminate or reduce the potential for liability. So one of the things that is a hot issue in today's world is the question of joint employer liability or any other kind of vicarious liability that might accrue to the franchisor.
Right.
Typically, in a franchise relationship, because it is a independent contractor relationship, the franchisee is an independent contractor. From a legal standpoint, there is no liability for the franchisor, but of course, plaintiff's attorneys are always going to try to figure out a way to get past that if they can. And one of the ways they get past that is if there's a poorly written franchise operations manual that perhaps is overly prescriptive in some of the areas that they should not be prescriptive in. And so there should be a sort of clear delineation between best practices and brand standards and which one's which in a manual. So we develop those manuals. Typical manual could be 400-500 pages in length. We'll develop training programs, training videos. We'll develop online learning systems. Train-the-trainer programs is another ways you protect against joint employer liability. So we'll develop those kind of quality control tools for our clients as well. And then, of course, as a franchisor, you're not going to be a franchisor unless you sell franchises. And so you need to have a plan in place to market the franchise. And while brokerage companies are a part of most good plans, it's not going to be just brokerage companies that are going to get you there. You have to have a plan for lead generation that will allow you to grow organically and in particular in the specific markets that you're looking to grow, especially if you're looking in a 3-hour drive time radius. You need to be very localized in terms of where you're looking.
Right.
In addition to that, you need to be able to deliver a highly targeted message through materials like e-brochures. You need a dedicated franchise website. If you don't have a dedicated site with a different top-level domain that's got the word franchise in it in some format, you're going to probably have a problem in terms of your SEO efforts. Google will get confused if you are selling your consumer services and your franchises.
Right.
Same site. They won't know what to optimize around. And then, of course, as a new franchisor, there's a number of areas where you might need help and assistance, just from the standpoint of coaching. So, how do you sell franchises? How do you onboard your franchisees?
Right.
What kind of compliance systems do you have to set up? And so we'll train people and provide ongoing coaching and assistance to them. And those are the kind of services we typically provide to a new franchisor. Mm-hmm. Some new franchisors are looking to grow slower, so they don't need as much from us to get started. And it's sort of a menu-based approach, so we can work with companies, for relatively inexpensive set of fees, or we can be much more involved in that process, and obviously the fees would go up in accordance with the level of involvement we'd have.
All right, so there's definitely some flexibility based off of that growth plan and the budget, right? It's got to fit their budget as well. Mm-hmm. There's so many things we can talk about, and again, I'll put it up here and I'll put it on the show notes. Great book, Franchise Your Business. It gets into much more detail, and I like to kind of talk higher level. And for those people that have any questions, I would definitely recommend the book. What else would you recommend? What else did we not cover today that could help someone? So that person that is kind of like, I got this great business, but I'm listening to this show. This is all great. I'm leaning towards franchising. What other information or advice can you provide to that individual to help them with that decision?
Well, I think that the book is really a good place to start. I appreciate the plug you gave it. I do think it does give people a good overview of what's involved in franchising. And if they want to go to our website, which is ifranchisegroup.com, they would be able to find a link where we would send them actually a free copy of the book. We got a promotion going on now.
Okay.
Get a free copy of the book and look through it, read through it, see if it is something that makes sense for them. I think what they'll find in the book is that we try and take a fairly impartial approach to, franchising is not right for everybody, but for the people that it is, it does provide some real substantial advantages, and it outlines what the costs are. It'll outline what the process is. It'll outline advantages and disadvantages of franchising, and I think that's a good place to start. They're also welcome to talk to some of our consultants. We have people that are on board that are here just to answer questions and see if they can help people through what is a little bit of a newer business relationship that they may need a little bit of education on. And so we have some people on board whose job it is to make sure that they answer those kind of questions. So they're always welcome to contact us. We've got a fairly sizable amount of information as well on our webpage. Mm-hmm. So again, if they go to ifranchisegroup.com, I think they'd find a lot of resources that would help them in their decision-making process.
That sounds great. And if they want to reach out, I've made some introductions. I've had people contact me looking for a starting point, and we'll start that conversation. They can reach out to you. What's the best way? Reaching out to you directly on the website when they are ready to.
Yeah, just
that call.
Reach out on the website. There's a form they can fill out and to get the free book, and that'll if they provide their contact information there, we'll send them a copy of the book, and we'll have somebody reach out to them and see if we can answer some questions for them.
Awesome. Yeah, and the timing may not be. At least get educated. The book is definitely worth the read. Get educated. Maybe it's something that's implemented a year or two down the road, but I think the big lesson here is this is probably the best starting point. Don't dive into, as I keep bringing this up, FDD creation when maybe that franchise wasn't the best fit, and maybe it was. But to your point, one little difference, that 1% can cost you tens of millions of dollars, and wording can also prevent lawsuits. And not that things are done intentionally, but obviously you want things set up to minimize those headaches. So this is great. I mean, I literally, we definitely dove a little bit deeper, and I learned some new things here. And we'll put Mark's information, the website to get a copy of the book, in that forum. We'll put that all in the show notes. Mark, it was a pleasure. I really appreciate you coming back on the show. And if there's anything else that maybe we missed, then I can always add those to the show notes. This will probably be produced here in about a month or so.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Giuseppe. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. And if there's anything that we can ever do for you guys, we'd love to do it.
I appreciate it.